it's just a beautiful part of this process is to feel that somebody's actually listening to you, that somebody's not there judging you, that somebody's there for you. And I mean, I genuinely love and care for each and every one of the people that I support. There was a struggle with identity, and then embracing it and really coming into my own as a Latina, and now as a Latina therapist that understands those struggles, those immigrant struggles, the fear behind being undocumented, not knowing what the future holds. That's a big theme also in Latino community is if you seek help, then you're weak. Right? It's in the past. Just let it go. Like, you don't have to talk about it over and over. And that's not true because we store it. We store it in our body. It's in here. It's in our mind. And so it's so important to be able to give yourself the opportunity to process those things.
Hola, amiga, and welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast by Latinas for all women. So get ready because today's conversation is really special. Hi, welcome back to the Latina Leadership Podcast, to another episode. I'm Gracie, your co-host, and I'm so excited to have Rosa here today. Rosa, please let our audience know who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Rosa Casquino. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in California, and I'm also licensed in Nevada. I own a private practice called the Healing Guide Counseling Center, and I focus on adult survivors of childhood sexual trauma, immigration trauma, and domestic violence.
And I'm very interested in how you got, your education to do this. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey getting your social sciences degree and into social work?
Yes. So I started out with a bachelor's in social sciences at Chapman University. I had initially was thinking about possibly going into special education. I have a son with special needs, and that's kind of the field that I wanted to go into. But as I was working on my undergrad, I met people that were working for DPSS, and then eventually I met an MSW and an LCSW, and just hearing how they were working with survivors of trauma and how they were literally talking people off the ledge when they were suicidal was something that I found really fascinating. So I ended up just kind of going into that journey of eventually getting my master's in social work at CSUN.
And can you go a little more into what really inspired you to pursue this career in, mental health and social work?
Yeah. Well, initially, when I was a teenager, I wanted to become a child psychologist. I grew up in domestic violence, so there was a lot of violence that I saw, alcoholism, substance use. And so as a teen, I wanted to be able to support other teens that were going through what I was going through at home. And then eventually, as I got into my grad program, my goal was to help families with children with special needs, because I understand how difficult it can be to navigate that journey, to navigate the resources and the difficulty and the stress that special needs can put on a family. I mean, I definitely love my son, but it can be stressful for any individual that doesn't understand how to navigate the system and just the different difficulties that come along with that, with families and just being out and about with your child. So that had initially been my focus. And as I started to go into my grad program, I ended up in an internship and at a domestic violence shelter. And so that's when I started to work with survivors of domestic violence. And as I was working with them, I also noticed that there was a disproportionately high number of undocumented Latinas, but in addition to that, victims of sexual abuse. And as I started working with them, I realized that was my passion, right? That was really what was calling to me, to be able to support these survivors of trauma because of my own lived trauma and domestic violence, and also as a survivor of sexual abuse.
And how long have you been in social work? I'm sorry, I think I missed that.
I graduated in 2014. So, but, a little over 10 years. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you have your own practice for this, your own business. What made you decide to have your own practice, and how was that been like?
And so I've been in my private practice for about 2 years, and before that, I'd been working for nonprofits and community mental health organizations. And it was something that I enjoyed because I was able to give back to my community. It was people that didn't have any insurance, people on Medi-Cal, and any survivors that really needed services. And though it helped me grow as an individual, and I learned everything that I learned through there as far as helping the people that I help now, the the lack of extra support in those agencies, the funding is can be really tough. So there's loss of funding, loss of programs. I saw that we were only able to support people up until a certain amount of sessions or a certain amount of time, and that became difficult to see. And then it gets very political when it comes to funding, and the higher up that you go, it just gets more about the numbers versus the quality of services that we're giving to kids and families. And that just didn't sit well with my own values as an individual, but also as a social worker. And I made the decision then to transition out of nonprofits and community mental health and start my own, my own practice.
And how does working in that practice, I guess, how is it different from other ones with financial, like that financial area?
Yes.
With people who might not be able to afford it, like how's your practice different?
And so I am private pay, so I don't work with insurance, but anybody that has like out of network benefits, I do provide a super bill for them to be able to submit for reimbursement. But what that also helps me do, because I'm very specialized in sexual abuse, and I can charge kind of a premium fee because of that, because it takes a lot of emotional energy and it takes a lot of knowledge to be able to support this type of trauma. I'm able to then provide sliding scale fees to other people that may not necessarily be able to afford this type of specialty. Because what I had, the feedback that I have gotten is that, and again, this is not against anybody that does take insurance, but it can be very difficult to find very specialized care. That's the thing. Right. And if you don't know how to work with this type of trauma, you can cause a lot of damage to this individual that has already lived through so much, and really want to focus on not re-traumatizing people. And that's the experience that a lot of my clients that have come with, especially ones that have done therapy as teens or even young adults, they've come with me with additional trauma from therapists or healthcare professionals that did not know how to support them through what they have been going through. So I'm, like I said, so I'm able to then provide a sliding scale for them, and for certain individuals that, that have those financial restrictions, and support them through their own journey.
And it can be like more than one session, right? I guess.
Oh, yes.
How often is it?
Sessions are weekly or biweekly.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, I support people. I mean, I have people that have been working with me since I started my practice, so for about 2 years already. And so it's typically trauma therapy, especially with sexual abuse and or childhood abuse and neglect, it can take a few years to get to a place where we can really feel that those goals have been met and those healing goals have been met, and they can feel like they're ready, to kind of services. And I have some people that I see like monthly just for check-ins, and it's just really, really amazing work that people are willing to do and put in for themselves.
Yeah, I've had some experience with therapy, and really had that good relationship with my therapist. It was kind of like, oh, you're good now, and I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
Yes. I mean, yes.
Sometimes
So
we have to open that shell, right?
yes. And so especially when it comes to deep trauma and, or trauma that comes with attachment wounds, because a lot of the sexual trauma can be somebody that's in your family, a close family, then it takes a while for a secure relationship, therapeutic relationship, to be able to develop, and so people can feel safe enough to actually start working on those traumatic events. So a lot of those for a few months or even a year can be really developing a like safe and secure, attachment between the person that's seeking therapy and the therapist. And it's just a beautiful part of this process, is to feel that somebody's actually listening to you, that somebody's not there judging you, that somebody's there for you. And I mean, I genuinely like love and care for each and every one of the people that I support. Like I do. I have a lot of love for them.
No, that's what I love about not every, I guess, therapist or people you see is like that. So
Yeah. No, and I tell them, I tell my clients, like, I'm sending you a lot of love, or, I feel for you. And I'm not afraid to say those things out loud to them, because I know for a lot of people, it's so important for them to be able to hear that.
going back from, I guess, your history, you're from Peru, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I guess how has your like experiences as an immigrant influenced your work now in social work? So I know you highlight
Yeah.
a lot with the immigrant communities.
Yes, and so I also do immigration evaluations now for anybody that is in the process of applying for a visa under like U visa, VAWA, hardship, or asylum. And I came to the U.S. when I was about 2 years old, and I lived undocumented until I was about 18. So I get it. Like I remember, as a kid playing tag, but like, joking about La Migra coming. And so you'd be running around. And unfortunately, it's what we're like living in like again today. And this is when I was a kid, right? So we're looking at like, 20, 30 years later, still going through the same things and understanding the struggles of what it is like to be an immigrant, right? But also what it's like to be kind of the one foot in, one foot out, having to, understand your culture, but also having to acculturate to, to here, to the US. And because I went to school, here, all my life is basically here in the US. And so it, at moments it's, there's was a struggle with identity, and then embracing it and really coming into my own as a Latina, and now as a Latina therapist that understands those struggles, those immigrant struggles, the fear behind being undocumented, not knowing what the future holds, for you, that could be really scary. But also seeing at the same time, seeing the determination within my parents, seeing how hard they worked, gave me that drive, right? Because I know that particularly my mom, as a single parent, she gave up so much of her life, of what she wanted to do in order to come here. And it's because of those sacrifices that I'm able to do what I'm doing today.
I know within our Latina community,
Hmm.
sometimes this topic is not very talked about, mental
Hmm.
health and going to see
Yeah.
a therapist.
Yeah.
What are some misconceptions people may have about therapy?
That it's for crazy people. Yeah, that's such a big one, especially in the Latino community. That you only go if you're crazy. That you shouldn't go because you shouldn't air out like dirty laundry, right? Like you don't talk about the things that go in the household. It's private. A lot of the clients that do come to see me that are like first generation don't tell their family in the beginning because they're afraid of what their family might say. They're also afraid that their family's going to expect them to be cured like this, right? Like, oh, okay, you're done. You've been in therapy for a month. You should be cured. And so they hold back, and then eventually they may share. So there is that misconception again that only crazy people go to therapy. That what else? That you don't air out this dirty laundry, all the different secrets that can come out from families. I think a lot of families are really scared of that, right? That somebody's going to share something that's been like a secret that has been kept for a long time. They're scared of what people are going to say if they find out. ¿Y qué dirá? Like, oh, ¿qué dirá tu tía? ¿Qué dirá la vecina? ¿Qué dirá whoever, the whole world, if they find out that you're in therapy? What are they going to think about us? They're going to think that we're bad parents. They're going to think that we did something to you. And so it's a lot of that can hold a lot of people in the Latino community back from being able to seek help and support, and also not understanding what maybe their insurance benefits are, not understanding that they can go to therapy and get a diagnosis, but because if you pay out of pocket and not use insurance, like there is no medical record that your insurance has to have. So nobody has to know about your diagnosis and the treatment aside from just you and the therapist if it's private pay.
What would you tell someone who may be hesitant to go to therapy or doesn't know if it's
Yeah.
right for them or
Yeah. Yeah. Well, most therapists offer like a free consult, like 15, 20-minute consult. And so I do that a lot. And I talk to people and I just let them know, hey, like whenever you feel like you just want somebody to be able to listen and be non-judgmental, unbiased, like, yeah, I'm here, and there's so many other clinicians that can be here to support you. This is their journey. Like, I don't like, this is not for me, this is for them. And whenever they feel like ready to just take that initial step, like, I'll be here. Right. Whether it's, after this initial phone call, or whether it's, a few months later, whenever they feel ready, like it's okay to talk to somebody about what they're going through. It's okay to seek support. It doesn't mean that you're weak. All right. I think that's a big theme also, and I think in Latino community is if you seek help, then you're weak. right? It's in the past. Just let it go. Like, you don't have to talk about it over and over. And that's not true, because we store it. We store it in our body. It's in here. It's in our mind. And so it's so important to be able to give yourself the opportunity to process those things and to heal. And so I let them know that this is something that you can do just for yourself. Right. This is an opportunity for you to be able to heal and break generations of abuse and trauma. Breaking the intergenerational cycle of abuse is something that they have the power to do. Right. And that was what therapy can help them with. Like, I don't have the answers, they have them. I just help them get to it.
I think it's important for people to know that therapy is not just if you're crazy or if you're depressed, it's also
Mhm.
for people who just want to grow and just what.
Yeah, people come in when they're going through life transitions. If they're going through a breakup, or they've been through a divorce, or they're in between, like trying to figure out what they're going to do in school or in their career. That's some of the things that bring in people through the door, and then there's stuff back behind that. Then we come work with. But it's any moment that they just need that additional support. And so you can come in and do really hard work for a period of time, and then and then take a break, and then come back and do some maintenance work, right? Because our emotional and mental health, it's just like going to a physical. You go to a physical every year, you get your labs, you follow up, you do what you need to do. And so therapy can be somewhat similar. Once you've done a big chunk of the work, you can go back for maintenance every once in a while. And I do have people that do that.
Yeah, and you may have, I guess, people who have different backgrounds and things like that. How do you tailor your approach when working with different clients?
So the client is the expert, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm Latina, and so I know my experience, and I can connect with some of those experience. But I let them be the guide and the author of their story. So I ask them. I ask them about how their culture, how religion, how spirituality, how the community has impacted them and has shaped them, and what values are important to them as a result, so that I understand that and can really bring that in to therapy as I'm working with them. Right. So it's them. I really go through that lens of the client knows best, and the client knows best about their story. And so I let them guide me through that for them. And I ask questions. I don't present myself as the expert. I can specialize in certain areas, and I can really understand certain areas. For them, they're the expert of themselves.
And you do offer a bilingual
Yes.
one as well.
Yes. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, and I do that frequently, especially when I'm doing immigration evaluations. Like, I do a lot of, I help a lot of people that are Spanish speaking or monolingual.
Going to the immigration
Mhm.
evaluation, can you describe the process of conducting these immigration evaluations and how it impacts the individuals that you do work with?
Yeah. So it's a thorough, like, psychological assessment of how what they've been through is impacting them, right? How their immigration story is impacting them. So, for example, if I am working with somebody that is filing under VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women's Act, it is somebody that is a survivor of domestic violence typically. And so I let them know, of course, that I'm going to have to ask them so many details about their experience, because I need to understand how this experience has impacted them psychologically and emotionally, and how it's still impacting them today, so I can illustrate that in the evaluation. Right. So I have to go into a lot of detail about what they're experiencing, all the symptomatology, and also be very much aware that I'm holding space for somebody who has probably never told anybody this story in so much detail. Right. And I acknowledge that, and I hear that frequently. Like, I don't talk about this, right? Like, I've never really talked about this in so much detail. And so I'm very aware to make sure to take it slow, take pauses. I let them know, like, I know it may be difficult. We're coming up to some questions that may be a little bit more difficult. Would you like a break? So I want to focus on not re-traumatizing this individual. And so once I have conducted, like, the thorough assessment, I write up a 10 to 20 page report, and I go into detail about all the psychological symptoms that they're still experiencing due to either the crime that they've experienced, or if it's a hardship, then how it would impact them if their loved one were to be deported. And so, I go through all of that in a lot of detail, and then send it off to their immigration attorney. And that documentation then helps support the case, right? And I've been able to be part of this for so many years that I've had clients come back and say, I've got my work permit, I got my residency, and it's such an amazing experience, especially like myself having been undocumented and remembering what it was like to receive my work permit, remembering what it was like to receive that residency, that green card, and eventually my citizenship. It was just, to me, it's just such an amazing, like a rewarding part of this, of this aspect of work that I do. And I truly enjoy it. And it's a privilege to be able to support my community in that way.
If you're all about education, going back to school, or you're currently navigating college right now, we have something very exciting to share. Our Latinas in Education is coming very soon. So be sure to follow us at Latina Leadership Podcast on our socials, because we'll be updating and you can reserve your spot at our event. And yeah, and how things are now, and unfortunately how it will be for the next few years.
Yeah.
Have you gotten more, I guess, evaluations, or how does that change?
I've gotten a lot of inquiries. And since I'm licensed in California and Nevada, I can't help everybody. And so I typically, when I get inquiries for other states, then I direct them to a directory so that they can find a therapist or a psychologist that is able to help them. So yes, there have been a lot of inquiries all over the United States. And, I hope that we, and I mean, as therapists, as mental health clinicians that do these evaluations, and continue to support them, and that these like visas are still available for them, because that's also a concern, right? Will these exceptions still be available for individuals? And it's scary and disturbing to believe that they may not be in the future, when I've seen the benefit, and I've seen kind of the pathway to citizenship for so many people because of the hardships that they have gone through. I can let them know, hey, like, out of all of this that you've lived through, this is like one good thing that can come out of it. That it's a pathway to citizenship for you. And that kind of like, oh yeah, that helps them feel like, okay, like this can be something that comes out of it.
Yeah, I know it's very hard to find that positive, like how to stay positive during that, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be. In a lot of, especially in January, a lot of my sessions were holding a lot of space for people that were really struggling with everything that's going on. I don't just see it in clients, I see it in friends, family, in my kids, because their friends at school are expressing fear for their own parents or family members. It's really heartbreaking. Yeah, to hear this like every day. And as therapists, we are trying to like come together to support each other, because it's heavy. Like all this emotional like burden that we carry for a lot of people has been really heavy in this last month and 2 months.
That was actually my next question. As someone who works in mental health and works with a lot of different people who may have different traumas and backgrounds, how do you take care of your own mental health?
I sleep. I get a good night's sleep, which is really important. I also have a good support system. So I think that's really key, to build a support system and a community around you. So, I have my friends, my partner, my mom, my kids, but I have made a really big like point to build more of a also therapist community around myself, like other therapists to connect with, specifically like Latinx therapists, because I think it's just so important. And a lot of our stories are unique, and we understand the extra burdens that we have to carry, right? As maybe like first gen or like oldest like daughters, and what we need to carry for our family system. And so I've been connecting a lot with other therapists. I've created groups also for other therapists, so that we can meet up and be able to process some of the things that we're going through. And so that's how I like stay sane. And making sure that you're eating, making sure that you're moving your body. I know everybody says like the same like cliche thing, but that's really, really, really important. Body movement, whether it's just going outside, spending time with my dog, anything. Yeah, anything that doesn't involve work is like the key to ensuring that you're not burning out. Right. And I think it's so easy to burn out, especially when you're first started out in this field. And so when I work with grad students or interns or associates, I do focus a lot on that self-care aspect. Like, how do you take care of yourself to ensure that you're not burning out? Because the population that, that I tend to have worked with from the beginning up until now is high trauma. And so and I love it. I don't know if I could work with any other population because I really enjoy this work. But I also know that it really takes a level of discernment about like where you're at, right? Like when do you notice that you're starting to like burn out? When do you notice that you're starting to lose maybe some empathy, or that your own health is declining, whether it's mental health or physical health? Like all those things like have to be also at the front of my mind. Like, am I taking care of myself? Am I sleeping? Am I eating? Am I moving my body? Am I spending time with my family? Am I only working? And if I am, then I need to make sure it's that balance. And it's not always easy. Like sometimes it's like one takes more, one takes the other. But it's something that we have to be aware of like all the time, because sometimes I forget to use the tools that I tell my that I suggest to my clients to use. I have to remind myself of that also.
Yeah, and practicing self-care. Like that's so important. Everybody has their different favorite ways to practice self-care.
What are my different favorite ways?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I do like a good workout, like a really like nice, good cardio workout. I like to sometimes binge watch like a good show. That's a good way of self-caring. Also, I love to dance, so I like to go out dancing with my partner, and so we dance. I like to travel. That's one of the things that I really enjoy. So traveling and dancing are like the ways that I just really like self-care.
What's your favorite place that you've traveled to?
Um, I Paris so far, and I'm going to Japan in a few months, and then Peru in another couple of months also.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I've never been out of the country.
It's a very different experience. It opens your eyes to, the world is so big. I think at times we feel like um our own like pain, right? It feels so big sometimes because our world can feel small, and so our pain can feel so big. And I think when we're able to venture outside of our own home, outside of our own city, and outside of our own community, we can see that there's so much more life to be able to live. And I think that that's something that has helped me also kind of throughout my own healing journey, is like it's so much like the world is so much more beautiful and bigger, and source has created so much beauty out there that I want to enjoy that, and I want to be able to live and thrive, not just be in survival mode consistently.
You're not just living day to day, but going out and
Mhm. Yes. Yep.
exploring the world. I feel like I forget sometimes that we're just this little person on this huge, huge earth.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's exactly it, right? When you venture out, it's like, I mean, and you don't even have to like travel far. You can go for a hike and, just look at the beauty. You can go for a drive and look at the mountains. I mean, living in California, it's really beautiful because, like, you can go for a drive and you see them, like the scene, the mountains. You can drive by the ocean, and that to me is enough to show me, like, okay, like I'm this little speck in like the beauty of what Source or God has created. Mhm.
Did you have like a mentor or someone who inspired you throughout this journey of becoming in social work?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I entered grad school, you in your internship you get assigned like a field supervisor, and so that tends to be like a licensed clinician, right, in your field. And so for that, I actually my field supervisor ended up being my clinical supervisor after I graduated, and actually that person supervised me throughout my licensure. So for years, she was the CEO of the domestic violence shelter that I used to work for, and she has been my mentor. We're still really good friends. We still go out like for lunch or dinner, and she really like pushed me to do things that were completely out of my comfort zone. Like I honestly did not want to intern at the domestic violence shelter. I grew up in that, and I didn't want to face that every day. I used to walk into the agency with a knot in my stomach every single day because I did not want to face this. But she told me, you're going to face this anywhere in social work. So why not do it here and now while I'm still by your side? And so for me, that was my cue. And that also taught me of, when I'm working with my clients, like, why not face this like while I'm here by your side? right? When they're coming up to a block because it feels really hard or challenging, it's like, I'm here and I will do this with you if you want me to. Right. So it was from her that I really took that. And she did. And she helped navigate all that for me. Anytime that I was like, no, I don't want to do this. She's like, you can do it. You've got this. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. and and she's just, every time there was an opportunity for something new, like she presented it to me, and then I just started taking the challenges even though it was scary. So she mentored me, she taught me a lot of the skills and tools that I needed to be able to work with survivors of trauma, sexual trauma. She was actually the one that said, like, you should work with survivors of sexual trauma. I was like, I don't want to. and and once I did, it was something that was incredibly healing for me also, but then was what I ended up being called to do, and that's what I continue to do today.
With your years of experience, are you a mentor now? Like, do you mentor?
I used to, when I was at the nonprofits and community mental health centers, I used to oversee students in grad programs, MSW, MFTs, LPCCs, and I supervise people through their licensure. So that's one of the components that I really, really miss in being in private practice. But I started to do some speaking engagements and training. So that has given me a taste of what I really enjoy also, and be able to share the knowledge that I have and the experience that I have with therapists that are just out of grad school that are working on their license, just being able to give them those tools and support. I was going through some of my old stuff this weekend, and I came across letters and gifts from past students and clients. I mean, it was just really nice to be reminded of something that I really, really enjoy doing. So, but I'm always open. Like, if somebody reaches out to me for anything, like, for feedback or support, like, I am always open to communicating through, whether it's email, through a Zoom or chat. Like, I love being able to support, like, new therapists. I think it's really, really needed.
Yeah, what advice do you have for aspiring young therapists?
Oh, yeah, definitely do your own work. Do your own work, because that can be a big barrier to being able to support people. When you're constantly activated by your clients, that can be very detrimental to the work that you're doing with them. So do your own work. Do your research as to the programs that you want to get into, right? Making sure that you're advocating for yourself through grad school, through your internships. Those are definitely a big component of some of the things that I used to talk to my students about, especially when they moved on to a new year, a new internship, and they would call me, like, telling me all these things that were happening. I'm like, advocate, like, you have a voice, like, advocate for yourself. And that it does feel scary at times, right? And when you graduate, you're not expected to know everything. Yeah. And it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, cry after a session. I cried a lot after sessions when I first started. So, do your own work, and it's okay to not know everything. That's why your supervisors, that's why your clinical supervisor, that's what your mentors and field preceptors, that's what they're there for, to be able to support you through this journey. Because it is not just going to school and learning theories and practical applications. It is a journey into your own self, because it will bring up a lot. So if you have stuff that you've never worked on, it's going to get activated when you're in grad school in this type of program. If you're going into therapy work, it will definitely come out. And that's what I would tell all my students. If you have shit that you haven't worked through, it's going to come up. So please, please, please work through it, or start that process right now, because I saw it happen frequently.
And it's important to work through that before becoming a therapist, right?
You can work through it while you're in grad school. Yeah, while you're just do some work before. Because, look, most therapists go into this field because of our own wounds, right? Or what we've seen within our family and our community. Something has inspired us to get into this field. And if you go into it with no intention of touching on those, then you're going to go in over your head, and you can potentially, like, hurt somebody. So please just give yourself an opportunity to explore and work on healing, because you're not going to heal yourself through healing other people. Okay? You have to do it also for yourself. So it can be done concurrently as you're in grad school, as you're working. have a therapist. I have a therapist, that I love and that I check in with. So it's such an important part of, of being able to also do this work, is to continuously do your own work and to acknowledge when you do need help.
No, I love that. I know that a lot of therapists have their own therapists.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a therapist to other therapists also, so it's a beautiful, to be able to have that and to be able to support people through that also. And I know like how much I love my therapist, so like I love being able to support people through that.
How do you see the future of mental health support in our immigrant communities, I guess, evolving in the few years?
hmm I mean, I hope that more, more Latina therapists like are coming on board, and I see that in such a like this large population of therapists that I am connected with, specifically the Latinx therapy community and directory. And they talk a lot about all the different resources that they're providing for our immigrant community. There are free resources. There's so many therapists that are putting together groups and sliding scales and spots at no cost for our immigrant community, especially right now. And I hope that, I mean, my fear is that they're going to hide more, right? That our community is going to hide more and not reach out for support. That is a fear that I have. I hope that in being able to share this information, that there is resources, and that we don't, I mean, especially in California, like if somebody comes to me and they're undocumented, and I have worked with clients that are undocumented and DACA recipients, like I don't share that information with anybody. Like I don't have to share that information. So that's protected information between them and myself. Right. And so I hope that at least in knowing that and in hearing that won't, it'll help them be able to say, okay, if I need support, then I can reach out for support. And I don't have to hold back out of fear that, somebody's going to report me or that they're going to call like immigration on me. I value their privacy, and I hope that, that they will feel so comfortable to reach out for that help. But, what I hope to continue to see is that people do break those intergenerational chains of trauma and abuse that is passed down and seek the help. Because we do see that, right, in our immigrant communities that tend to be really, that hold like onto themselves, and all that fear is that they hold on to that trauma. And I hope that they can break free from that.
And someone who may be listening, because I know we do have listeners in California as well, where can our listeners find you?
They can find me on Instagram. It's the.healing.therapist. No, the.healing.guide.therapist. So the Healing Guide Therapist on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, same, the Healing Guide Therapist. My website, thehealingguidecounseling.com. I have a lot of information up there, resources for for Latinos, for immigrant community, for LGBTQIA plus community. So I have a lot of resources and blogs up there also on my website. And on TikTok, I post a lot of educational content about immigration evaluation, sexual abuse. I also do psychedelic therapy. So I post information about that on there also.
Yes, we'll for sure link your website and your resources to our when we post our little social clips after this.
Yeah, yes.
Are there any questions I didn't ask you that you would like to tell our audience or listeners?
It can feel scary to reach out, right, and to find a therapist. But as a consumer, as you have the right to make all the calls that you want, get all the consults that you want, make a decision about what care is right for you. Therapy is not just about talking about the trauma. It's about really reconnecting to yourself, reconnecting to your body, and getting to know who you really are aside from the trauma, right? To get out of survival mode and to really, really live and to discover you, because the real you is in between all of that. Mm-hmm. And so, I hope that people can look at therapy in a little bit of a different way, after today, and to know that they can reach out, they can find a good fit. Sometimes like finding a good therapist is like dating. You just kind of have to, go out and meet a bunch of different ones and then pick the right one that's for you. But, sometimes if you have a bad experience, know that there are a lot of therapists out there that can be a good fit for you. And it's who you feel connected to that can help you guide you through your own healing journey.
And thank you so much for talking to me today. Thank you for joining us in this amazing conversation today. And if you need more information or resources, as always, they'll be in the description below. Please don't forget to follow us everywhere at Latina Leadership Podcast to stay updated with our latest releases, events, updates, and more. And with that, we'll see you next time.